10 years. That was the time I invested in a marriage I believed was built on solid ground. My phone alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning, and even before it rang, I was already up. That was how it went every week. I, Jack, a truck driver by trade, drove American highways carrying loads from coast to coast. My routine was long, lonely stretches, stops at gas stations, and chatting on the radio with other drivers. The tiredness was made up for by the thought I held onto, coming home and finding Amanda. Our story began at a roadside bar where she worked as a waitress. We got married after a year of dating. Without kids by mutual choice, our relationship seemed perfect for who we were. I worked hard on the road to provide comfort and stability. She took care of our home in a quiet suburb. Every time I came back, I tried to make up for my absence with gifts, dinners, and undivided attention. "You guys are so lucky," our friends used to say, "a marriage that survives the distance." And I believed that. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. It was in the 7th year that I started noticing subtle changes. Our video calls became shorter. Amanda always had something to watch or a friend to meet up with. Her messages, which used to be affectionate and detailed, turned short and practical. Remember the statement, "Did the car payment go through? Come back safe." The intimacy changed, too. The hugs when I arrived home felt more like obligations rather than a way to show how much we missed each other. When I told her road stories I had saved just for her, I noticed her vacant look, checking her phone or simply replying, "Interesting." I tried to ignore those signs, convincing myself it was just a phase. One night, after being away for 3 weeks, I prepared a surprise dinner. I bought her favorite wine and ordered flowers. She got home from the gym, looked at everything, and said only, "It's good you're back. I'm tired, so I'm gonna shower." She didn't even touch the food. The little rejections piled up. Special gifts met with forced smiles. Trips were postponed. Kisses became mechanical. Yet, I kept believing we were a strong couple just going through tough times. May, almost spring. I finished a delivery ahead of schedule and decided to surprise her. I didn't tell Amanda about my early return. On my way, I stopped to buy the chocolate she used to love. I parked my truck 1 block away so as not to spoil the surprise. Our house had the lights on. I took my key and slipped in quietly. That's when I heard her voice coming from the bedroom while she was on the phone. Normally, I would have announced my arrival, but something made me stop in the hallway. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," Amanda was saying, her voice soft but clear. "I haven't felt anything for him in years. Honestly, I can't stand this life anymore." I froze, holding the bag of chocolates. "Of course I'm not gonna leave now," she continued. "Jack pays all the bills. The house is in his name. I have his work's health insurance. It would be stupid to throw that away." There was a pause, then a laugh I'd never heard before. "Love? Please, I got over that a long time ago. It's just convenient. He travels so much we barely see each other. It's the perfect arrangement." The chocolates slipped from my hand. They didn't even fall, but it felt like my whole world was collapsing. 10 years of devotion, sacrifice, and true love reduced to convenience. I backed silently to the door and left. She didn't even notice I was there. I spent hours driving aimlessly, trying to process what I'd heard. I parked at a gas station and watched families on trips and couples holding hands. My phone vibrated with a message, "Is it gonna take long this time?" I figured Amanda was probably checking just how much longer her freedom would last. I got home late at night. She was already asleep, or pretending to be. I sat on the living room sofa, replaying every moment of the past years, searching for the signs I had ignored. The trips she skipped. The calls she didn't answer. The smiles that no longer reached her eyes. In the morning, she acted normally. She made coffee and asked about my trip. I answered mechanically while watching how she performed. It was surreal to see the gap between her polite words and her true feelings. "Are you okay?" she asked, noticing my long silence. "Just tired," I replied. "The road really wears you down." I wanted to confront her and demand the truth, but I realized it would be useless. The confession I'd overheard wasn't meant for me. The real truth had slipped away when she didn't know I was listening. Anything she said now would just be another performance. While Amanda slept, I made up my mind. There would be no confrontations, tears, or explanations. I packed a backpack with essential documents, some clothes, and personal belongings. I transferred half of our savings into a separate account. I left the rest for her, more than enough to get by for a while. I turned off my old phone and put it in a drawer. I bought a new one with a new number. I cancelled our shared credit cards. I even emailed my boss to resign, thanking him for the opportunity. I looked at our bedroom one last time. Amanda was sleeping peacefully, not knowing that this would be our goodbye. I didn't leave a letter explaining anything. Why would I? She would know exactly why. At dawn, I got in my truck and left without looking back. The feeling was strange, a mix of deep pain and growing relief. 10 years of my life built on an illusion. But also 10 years that taught me what I no longer wanted. On the road that always meant work and obligation, I now found a path to freedom. With every mile I put between me and that house, I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was heading into the unknown, but for the first time in years, it was completely my choice. The first days after leaving were tough. I drove without a fixed destination, stopping only to eat and sleep at cheap roadside motels. I had no plan, just the certainty that I needed some space. After a week of wandering, I came across a small gas station in a tiny Texan town called Cedar Creek. The owner, a gray-haired man named Mike, had posted a help-wanted sign on the door just as I pulled in to fill up. "Do you know your way around engines?" he asked when he saw me looking at the sign. "I worked as a mechanic before I became a truck driver," I replied, thinking back to my early jobs. "Perfect. My mechanic retired last week. If you're interested, the job's yours." I accepted on the spot. Cedar Creek was so small that Amanda would never even think about looking for me there, even if she tried. I rented a simple trailer at the back of a rural property, paying a fair price to an elderly lady who didn't ask many questions. The place had just the basics: one bed, a stove, a small fridge, and a tiny bathroom. But it was mine. No memories, no lies. The first few months were all about adjusting. I'd wake up startled sometimes, thinking I needed to be back on the road. Then I'd remember that life was behind me. At Mike's station, I fixed cars for the locals and occasionally helped restock the convenience store shelves. The work was calm compared to the long hauls as a trucker, and my body thanked me for it. "You don't talk much about your past," Mike remarked one time while we were having sandwiches. "There's not much to tell," I replied, focused on my coffee. "Everyone's got a story, son. Especially someone who just appears out of nowhere in Cedar Creek." Over time, I shared parts of my story with Mike. Not all the details, but enough. He listened without judgment and simply said, "Sometimes you need to start from scratch." That simple routine began healing wounds I didn't even know I had. I realized how I used to live in a constant state of anxiety, always worrying if Amanda was happy, if I was doing enough, if the marriage was okay. Now, my only responsibility was to myself. After 3 months on the job, I bought a used motorcycle. On weekends, I explored Texas back roads, discovering hidden lakes and even smaller towns than Cedar Creek. On one of those rides, I met Sarah, a local school teacher whose car had broken down. I fixed her car and refused to take any money. She insisted on thanking me with a coffee. Our friendship grew naturally. Sarah was recently divorced and understood what it meant to start over. There was no romantic pressure, just honest chats and good company. She introduced me to other people in town, teachers, the grocery store owner, the librarian. Soon I had a small circle of genuine friends. "Why do you never ask about my marriage?" I asked Sarah during one of our weekly coffees. Because everyone's got stories that hurt to tell, she replied simply. When you're ready, you tell yours. That was the most striking difference in my new life. People accepted me for who I was at the moment, not for what they expected me to be or for what they could get out of me. I didn't have to be the provider, the husband, or the trucker. I could just be Jack. After 6 months in Cedar Creek, Mike offered me a partnership at the station. I'm getting old, he said. I need someone I can trust to take over when I can't do it anymore. The offer surprised me. It was the first time in years that someone had truly placed their confidence in me. Days began to flow with a calm I'd never experienced before. I added personal touches to my trailer, a little garden in the back, shelves I built for my few books, and an improvised hammock on the porch. On summer nights, I'd sit there with a cold beer, watching the starry Texas sky, so different from the limited view back in the city. I started fishing on weekends, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. Mike taught me the secrets of the local lakes, where to find the best spots and which bait worked for each fish. We could sit for hours in comfortable silence in his small boat, just enjoying the calm on the water. You seem different, Mike commented almost a year after I arrived. What do you mean? When you first got here, you looked like you were carrying the weight of the world. Now, you even smile for no reason. He was right. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Not that false sense of security I had in my marriage, but a real inner peace. I discovered I could be happy alone, without needing anyone's validation or approval. In Little Cedar Creek, I found more than a refuge, I found freedom. The freedom to be myself, to make mistakes, and not to live up to anyone's expectations. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it no longer consumed my thoughts. It was just a scar, a reminder of an important lesson learned. The phone call came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was finishing repairs on a tractor when Mike showed up with a strange look on his face. There's a woman on the line, he said as he handed me the office phone. She says she's your wife. My stomach froze. For almost a whole year, I had managed to keep my whereabouts a secret. I changed my name on social media, cut off my old contacts, created a new identity. How did Amanda find me? Jack? Is that really you? Her voice came through, a mix of relief and despair I didn't recognize. Thank God. I looked for you everywhere. I stayed silent, unable to work up a response. The voice that once meant home now sounded like that of a stranger. Please, say something, she pleaded. You just disappeared. I thought you were dead. The police didn't do anything because they took your stuff, so they figured you left on your own. How did you find me? I finally managed to ask, my voice hoarse. I hired a private investigator, she explained, her words coming quickly. It took months. Why did you do it, Jack? Why did you leave without saying anything? The hypocrisy hit me like a punch. She knew exactly why I left, but chose to act innocent. Amanda, we both know the answer, I replied dryly. There was a long silence before she continued. Can we talk in person? I need to see you. We need to settle this. I hung up without a word, my hands trembling. Mike offered me a glass of whiskey, which I accepted gratefully. Old problems, he asked, not pushing further. Seems like it, I murmured. In the following days, Amanda sent dozens of messages to my new number. At first, they were emotional appeals, I miss you, I don't understand why you left, please, give me a chance to explain. As I didn't reply, her tone changed, you can't just abandon our marriage, we have a life together, you have responsibilities. The truth finally came out in a voicemail she left after a week, Jack, I'm in financial trouble. The bank is foreclosing on the house. I can't pay the bills alone. I've always been dependent on you, you know that. Please, come back. We can rebuild what we had. There it was, the real reason she was desperate to find me. It wasn't love, longing, or genuine regret. It was the same convenience that had kept her in the marriage for years. The house, the bills, the financial security I provided. Her comfortable life was falling apart without my support. The messages kept coming. Pictures of our happy times, memories of special moments, promises of change. I was selfish, she wrote. I didn't appreciate what we had. Now I understand how much you meant to me. I spent sleepless nights reliving our marriage through those messages. How could I have been so blind? The signs were always there, the forced affection, the shallow conversations, the lack of enthusiasm when talking about our future. Amanda never shared my dreams, she just tolerated my ambitions as long as they paid for her comfort. During one of our weekly coffees, Sarah noticed I was troubled. Do you want to talk about it? She offered. For the first time, I told her everything, the betrayal I discovered, the decision to leave, the recent messages. Sarah listened intently without interrupting. What are you planning to do? She asked when I finished. I don't know, I confessed. Part of me wants to just ignore it all and move on. Another part thinks I need some closure. Whatever you decide, she said while covering my hand with hers, just know you've built a good life here. You have friends who truly care about you. 2 weeks after that first contact, Amanda showed up in Cedar Creek. I arrived at the gas station one morning and found her waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car. She looked thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, she ran toward me. Jack, she exclaimed, trying to hug me. I instinctively stepped back. What are you doing here, Amanda? I needed to see you, she said, tears streaming down her face. I needed to tell you in person how sorry I am, how stupid I was not to appreciate our marriage. Her eyes took in my appearance, noticing the Texas tan, the muscles built from hard work, and the absence of worry lines that used to mark my face. You look different, she said, uncomfortable with the change. I am different, I confirmed. This is the real Jack, Amanda. Not the man you used for convenience all these years. Her expression changed instantly. What are you talking about? I never? I was at home that night, I calmly interrupted. I heard your conversation on the phone. About how you couldn't stand being with me anymore and stayed for the financial security. The shock on her face was real. For a moment, it seemed like she was going to deny it, then her shoulders slumped in defeat. It was just a venting, she tried to justify. Everyone has frustrating moments in a marriage. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything, Amanda. It was the most honest thing you'd said to me in years. She switched tactics, tears welling up again. I realize now how wrong I was. After you left, I understood how much you meant to me. Please, give me another chance. We can start over. I looked at her desperation with a detachment that surprised me. A year ago, I would have done anything to hear those words. Now, I could see the manipulation behind them. You miss your comfortable life, I said softly. You miss having the bills paid, the big house, the security. You don't miss me. That's not fair, she protested. We built a life together for 10 years. You can't just throw it all away. I didn't throw it all away, Amanda. You made that choice long before I discovered the truth. Amanda stayed in Cedar Creek for 3 days at the only motel in town. Every day, she made a new attempt to convince me to come back. She brought mortgage documents, overdue bills, collection notices, clear evidence of her life falling apart without my support. We can work this out together, she insisted. We're a team, we always have been. During those days, I kept living my normal routine. I worked at the station, had dinner with Mike and Sarah, and went fishing on Sunday mornings. Amanda watched my new life with growing disbelief. Do you really prefer this? She asked on the third day, gesturing toward my simple trailer. A mediocre life in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere? Her question highlighted the gap between us. What she saw as mediocre, I recognized as genuine, true friendships, honest work, simplicity, everything missing from our showy marriage. I'd rather have a real life than a fake one, I replied calmly. Here, no one expects me to be someone else. No one puts up with me just for convenience. On the last night of her stay, Amanda showed up at my trailer with a bottle of wine. She was all dressed up, with perfect makeup and wearing the perfume I used to give her as a present, a final desperate attempt. "Remember how good it used to be?" she asked, sitting close to me on the narrow couch. "The two of us talking late into the night, making plans?" "I remember how I used to think it was good," I replied. "Now I wonder how much of it was real." Then she tried to kiss me, a calculated move that would have worked once upon a time. I gently pulled away, noticing the confusion in her eyes. "It doesn't work anymore, Amanda. I don't feel anything for you." She burst into tears, but this time anger joined them. "You're being cruel. After everything I went through trying to find you. Why did you really come after me?" I asked directly. "Be honest, just once." There was a heavy silence before she answered in defeat. "I don't know how to live alone. I don't know how to pay the bills, how to keep the house. Everyone asks about you, and they look at me with pity. My parents say I'm foolish for letting you go." That was finally the honesty I needed to hear. It felt liberating, even if it was born out of desperation. "I'm coming back," I said calmly. Her face lit up instantly. "Really?" "Oh, Jack, you won't regret it. I'll be the wife you deserve, I promise." "I'm coming back just to sign the divorce papers," I clarified. "To officially close what ended a long time ago. You can keep the house, I'll transfer it to your name. I'll also pay 3 months' worth of bills so you have time to get on your feet. After that, we go our separate ways." Understanding slowly came over her. "You're really leaving me? Actually, you left me years ago when you decided I wasn't worth your love anymore. I just took a while to realize it." The next morning, Amanda left. I promised to meet her in 2 weeks with the documents to finalize our separation. As I watched her car fade into the distance, I felt a deep relief. There were no more doubts or what ifs, only the certainty of a right decision. Later that day at the station, Mike asked, "Did she leave?" "She did," I confirmed. "And you?" "I'm gonna take care of a few things and come back. My life is here now." He smiled and patted me on the shoulder. "There'll always be a place for you in Cedar Creek, son." 2 weeks later, I drove back to the town I once called home. The house somehow looked smaller. Neighbors waved politely, curious about my sudden return after a year away. Amanda greeted me with practiced formality. The lawyer I had hired was already there with all the documents ready. The transfer of the house to her name, a fair division of our assets, and the settlement of the bills were all arranged for a clean, final end. "So that's it?" she asked as we finished signing. 10 years boiled down to a few signatures? Our marriage ended long before these signatures, Amanda. We're just making official what we already knew. Before leaving, I looked at that house one last time, the house I had worked so hard to build and maintain. I no longer felt any attachment or nostalgia, just gratitude for the lesson it taught me. Some relationships aren't meant to last, and there's no shame in knowing when it's time to move on. On my way back to Cedar Creek, I stopped at the same gas station where I had started my journey a year earlier. I bought a coffee and watched trucks pass by on the highway, a life that now felt so distant. I realized I didn't miss the endless roads, the impersonal motels, or the constant pressure to return to a house that was never really a home. For the first time in a long time, I was heading back to a place where I truly belonged. Not out of obligation or convenience, but by genuine choice. Cedar Creek, with its simplicity and authentic people, had become more of a home in 1 year than my marriage ever was in a decade. With the Texas horizon spreading out before me, I drove toward my future, a future I chose for myself, free from the expectations and disappointments of the past. It's been a year since I signed the divorce papers. 2 years since I heard those words that changed the course of my life. It's strange how one single moment can split your existence into before and after. Before, I was a man living a lie I believed was truth. After that, I became someone who seeks authenticity above all else. The Cedar Creek gas station now has a sign that says Mike and Jack's Auto Shop and Convenience. The partnership with Mike solidified, and we even expanded the business to include a full auto repair shop in the back. I have my own little corner where I turn problematic cars into reliable machines again. There's something deeply satisfying about fixing broken things, maybe because I had to rebuild myself, too. My trailer was replaced by a small house nearby. Nothing luxurious, just 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, and a spacious porch where I hung my favorite hammock. On the walls, there aren't any photos of the past, just memories of the last 2 years, fishing trips with Mike, community parties, and simple moments with true friends. I've occasionally heard news about Amanda. She sold the house and moved to another state, starting a new life as well. I sincerely hope she found her way, and maybe even learned some of the same lessons I did. And what lessons were those? Sitting here on my porch, watching the Texas sunset, I can list them with a clarity only time and distance can bring. The first and most important, I learned to differentiate between love and convenience. Many relationships survive not because there's genuine love, but because it's convenient for both people, maybe for financial security, fear of loneliness, social pressure, or just inertia. Living with someone for years creates a comfort zone that we often mistake for happiness, when in truth it's just familiarity. Amanda stayed with me because I provided stability. I stayed because I believed our marriage was solid, ignoring the signs of decay. We both settled into a situation that didn't truly fulfill us. When I realized that, I understood that real love can't coexist with so much pretense. The second lesson, I learned to recognize the signs. They're always there, screaming to be noticed, the way someone looks away when you speak, a touch that feels mechanical, conversations that become shorter, more practical and less intimate, the forced enthusiasm that never reaches the eyes, or the pull of a phone that always seems more interesting than your company. We ignore these signs because facing them means confronting painful truths. I chose to believe in the illusion of a happy marriage instead of questioning why my wife no longer showed true interest in my life. If I had noticed the signs, maybe the end would have been less traumatic, even if it was inevitable. The third lesson, I learned the value of authenticity. In Cedar Creek, I discovered the joy of honest relationships. When Mike criticizes me for a botched repair, I know it's because he cares about our business's reputation. When Sarah disagrees with my opinion during our talks, I know it's because she respects my intelligence enough to be honest. There are no hidden agendas, just people being real with each other. That contrast made me realize how much time I wasted trying to please someone who merely tolerated my presence. How many times did I change my plans, stifle my desires, or ignore my needs to try to save a marriage that was already dead? Authenticity demands courage, courage to be who you are, to express your feelings, and to admit when something isn't working. The fourth lesson, I learned about self-forgiveness. In the first months after I left, I blamed myself constantly, for being naive, for not noticing sooner, for dedicating 10 years to a relationship that wasn't real. Guilt can be a heavy companion when you feel betrayed and deceived. Over time, I realized there was no reason for shame. Loving someone genuinely is never a mistake, even if that love isn't returned. I gave my best in that relationship. I was honest, dedicated, and present in the only way I knew. The fact that it wasn't enough doesn't make what I offered any less valuable. Forgiving myself became perhaps the most important step in my healing journey. The fifth lesson, I learned that starting over isn't failing, it's evolving. Our society often sees divorce as a failure, the end of a relationship as a defeat. It took me a while to realize that leaving wasn't an act of weakness but of courage. I had the strength to admit an unsustainable situation and the wisdom to seek something better. Rebuilding my life in Cedar Creek, with a new job, new friends, and simple habits, showed me that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. Every day is a chance to create the life we want, not the one others expect from us or the one we think we deserve. The man I am today is more genuine, more at peace, and infinitely happier than that trucker who once just wanted to come home to a wife who didn't love him. The sixth and perhaps most precious lesson, I learned that being alone isn't the same as feeling lonely. At the beginning of my new life, I feared solitude. I spent nights awake in my trailer, missing not so much Amanda as the presence of someone, the idea of sharing my life. Gradually, I discovered the joy of my own company. The freedom to make my own decisions without consulting anyone, to eat what I want when I want, or even to leave a wet towel on the bed if I felt like it. These small freedoms might seem trivial to some, but to me they meant rediscovering my individuality. And when I finally felt comfortable with myself, I realized that the connections I formed in Cedar Creek were deeper and more genuine than many I'd had before. Mike became like the father I never had, and Sarah, a friend who slowly evolved into something more, a relationship that grows naturally, built on mutual respect and real admiration, without pressure or expectations. Eventually, I understood the most important lesson of all: true love isn't about someone completing you, but about someone accepting you as already whole. I'm not with Sarah because I need her to survive emotionally or financially. I'm with her because we choose to be together, knowing that we'd be fine even if we were apart. That freedom of choice, without dependence or convenience, is what makes our bond so special. I often wonder what would have happened if I'd never heard that phone conversation on that spring night. Maybe I'd still be driving across America, convinced that a loving home was waiting for me, living under the illusion of a marriage that existed only in my head. Sometimes the biggest truths in life come from the most painful experiences. I'm not sharing my story to bash Amanda or to cast myself as a victim. I'm sharing because I know there are thousands of people out there in relationships where they're merely tolerated, not truly loved. People who convince themselves that it's better than nothing, or that all marriages have problems. The truth is, we deserve more than being someone's convenient option. We deserve to be actively chosen, day in and day out, for who we really are. And when that doesn't happen, we need the courage to choose ourselves. If you're in a relationship right now, ask yourself, would this person still be with me if I lost my job, my house, my health? If the answer is no, maybe what the two of you share isn't love but a silent agreement of convenience. It's essential to notice the signs. Pay attention not just to what your partner says, but to what they do. How do they react when you share your victories? Do they show genuine interest in your dreams? Do they prefer being with you over everything else, or do you feel like you're always fighting for their attention? The little truths are in everyday details, not in grand declarations. Another crucial point: learn to tell the difference between comfort and happiness. Comfort is not having to face the unknown, not having to sleep alone, not having to start over. Happiness is feeling your heart expand when you're with someone, laughing effortlessly, and being able to be vulnerable without fear. Many people sacrifice happiness for comfort, ending up with neither. If my story resonates with you, know that you're not alone. And more importantly, know that there is a life, a good, full, and authentic life, after a relationship that doesn't value you. The end of a marriage isn't the end of your story, it's just the end of one chapter. The road isn't easy. There will be days of doubt when you wonder if you made the right choice. Nights of loneliness when the silence in your home feels deafening. Moments of weakness when the lure of your old comfort zone is almost irresistible. But I promise you, from my own experience, that on the other side of this tough journey is a stronger, happier version of yourself. Cedar Creek taught me that life doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. I don't need a luxurious house or a picture-perfect marriage to feel fulfilled. Simplicity has its own beauty. True friendships have their own value. And the inner peace that comes from living authentically is priceless. Today, when I close the shop at the end of the day and walk over to my small house, where Sarah often waits with a genuine smile, I feel a deep gratitude for that painful night that set me free. Amanda's betrayal wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of my liberation. And you? Have you ever been through something like this? Are you in a relationship where you feel you're not truly valued? Or maybe you found the courage to start over, like I did? I'd love to hear your stories and how you handled similar situations. Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes, just putting your feelings into words is a step toward change. And remember, you deserve more than being someone's convenient option. You deserve to be the preferred choice, the priority, the genuine love. If this story touched you in any way, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear these words today. Sometimes all we need to make a difficult decision is to know we're not alone and that others have walked this path before. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. And if you want to follow more stories of overcoming and rediscovery, don't forget to subscribe. Together, we can learn to recognize our worth and seek relationships that lift us up instead of bringing us down. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. You are enough, exactly as you are.